Make it easy.
Okay, what's your name?
Donald P. Furr.
Great. And how old are you?
80.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Okay, who are you?
I'm Patty Furr. Well, you want my birth name? I'm Patty Breeden Furr.
That works.
Mary Patricia.
And what's your relationship to Don?
Oh, he's my wife, my husband.
Your wife?
He's my husband.
For how many years?
Almost 60.
All right, so when did you start farming?
Oh, probably when I got out of high school in 46, or 46.
Was that out here?
On this place, yeah. I was living in Eugene, but I worked out here.
And did you work for somebody, or did
Well, my dad had the place. I worked with the hired man that he had hired to run the place. The two of us worked down here.
And how long did you do it that way, where you were in Eugene? And
Oh, see, we were married in 48, I think. So, then I think we moved down here in about 58, 56, somewhere along in there.
So you were farming for 10 years or so
Yeah,
out here?
right, driving.
For your dad?
Right, driving back and forth.
Yes, I found out, I thought the farm was just a little hobby of his. I didn't think he was really going to live here. So we came down here temporarily. Everything around here is temporary. So we moved to the farm temporarily, and then we would move on somewhere else, but we stayed. And we love it now.
So you eventually started liking it?
Oh, yes.
Do you remember how much you paid for it?
This? No. We bought it in sections. A little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, until it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I don't know what the total price was.
Oh. How many acres did you have? What was the biggest that it ever
When
was?
we ended up, we had close to 950 acres here.
Can you tell me what your reaction was when he said you wanted to move to the farm?
Well, I was born on the farm, and I always wanted to live in town. I wanted to be a city dude, so I used to take posters and go down and put signs on the farm so that my dad would sell it. Somebody would come by and buy it, and then he'd find out. We never told who put the signs up, but he pulled them down every time. Then finally somebody bought the farm, and so we moved into town then. But I was a junior in high school at that time.
And you didn't want to move back out to the farm then?
No. I didn't want to move back to a farm. My mother said somebody will come along and sweep you off your feet. He'll wear a red hat and you'll think he's debonair, but he'll take you to the farm. And by golly, he did. But he was a handsome basketball player at the time. So he fooled me, he tricked me.
So what were you farming all those years?
Cattle.
Cattle?
We did sheep for 3 or 4 years and found out that didn't work. Too many parasites in the ground and whatnot. We were losing too many sheep, so then we went to cattle. That was easier to handle. And that's what we run until we finally ended up over with the ranch.
How many cattle did you run out here?
Out here, at one time I had 125 head. That's the most I ever run at one time.
Did that include the babies, or
It included everything, yeah.
what kind of cattle did you run out here?
Hereford, mainly, but it was a mix, because a straight line of cattle is not good the way to run it. You don't get the good. You have to mix them.
How did you do the mix? Did you have like
Well, we had
bred females and then bring them with different bull type?
right, the bull, different bulls that we worked with.
Did you own the bulls, or do you rent them? Or
We owned them.
Uh-huh.
I had 1 or 2 bulls around here all the time.
So what was the cycle like? When were the calves born, and when did you get rid of them?
Well, most of the calves were born in the spring, and then we kept them for a year. And they got to weigh about 400 and some pounds or something like that, and then sold them for meat after that way.
What was your outlet for that?
Just the market around the country here.
Auctions.
Yeah, auctions, and people come out and want to raise their own beef, so we'd sell them a calf and things like that.
You also did a lot of grass seed farming.
Not grass seed, just hay. I didn't get into grass seed until after we'd got rid of the cows in the operation and whatnot. All we had was the farmland and the brush back here.
So now it's a grass seed.
Now it's grass seed, yeah. I've got it leased out to.
Who's at least two?
Partner?
Who's at least two?
Hugh Gray.
When you first started out here, you were using horse farming, right?
Right. We started out, well, when we first started out, when we first got the place going, we had horses we worked with. We had 2 teams. One team of blacks and one set of big Pershings, 3 of them. There was 5 head we had. We did the plowing and the heavy work with the big horses. We did the harrowing and the raking and the light stuff with the small team. And we worked that for about 3 years. Then we were getting behind, so we decided we'd better get some tractors going here. So that's when we bought the old John Deere. And I worked that for, I don't know, 5, 10 years. Then I bought the International. I had 2 tractors going. That's where we were at when we finished out here.
That still was just to make hay to feed the cows?
To start with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never tried other types of crops other than hay?
No, just hay.
Can you explain the story behind the big barn that you moved piece by piece from that one?
Well, when we were living up in City View in Eugene, we had a chicken operation. We built a big chicken house up there. When that went belly up, we quit that. That's about the time we bought the ranch down here. And we needed some more outbuildings out there, so we decided we'd take the chicken house up there, saw it up in little bigger chunks that we could handle, put them on a truck and bring them down here and reassemble them in the shape of the barn that we did. And that's when they built that big barn out behind back there. It was there before it blew down.
How big was that barn?
Oh, it was about 150 feet long and 50 feet wide or something like that.
How long did it take you to do the
build
move?
it?
To do the move, yeah, the tear
Oh,
down.
about a year or 2.
Did you build the other barns that were out here? Or did
No, the one that was on this end of it was already there. I don't know when that was built. It was bought with the place.
But,
Anything else we built?
I noticed there are no barns out there now.
No. We had a big storm and it blew them down. And I tried to build them up again. We had another storm and blew them down the second time. And I figured, well, it wasn't meant to be. So we started cleaning up with the idea of building better metal buildings and whatnot. And I got too old to fool with it. And that's where I'm at now.
So what? I was looking at the video and there were the pictures of the Columbus Day storm and the big snow.
Oh, that was terrible.
Pretty hard on you guys.
That was really bad, and we have an old truck out there that a tree's grown up in the middle of it, but at that time it was workable, and my children were in school and I was scared to death, and I went in the storm. I got into that old truck. I've never driven it before in my life, and I drove it down to Creswell, which is 3 miles down the road, to pick them up. My littlest ones were in jeopardy, I thought, so I got them inside my truck and so that they wouldn't step on any electrical lines that were down and things, and I drove them clear home, and I don't know how I did it.
Over the years, as you were doing this, did you actually make a profit? Did you make enough money to raise your family, or did you have to do something else?
Well, I drove a school bus for 32 years. And then after Colleen graduated from high school, and Patty decided to go to work. And she went to work for U.S. National first. And with her in the banking business and me driving the school bus, we made enough then to kind of enjoy life a little bit better than we were before.
That's when you started going to Hawaii.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think we went to Hawaii in '77, I think, the first year we went over there. Up to that point, it was hard going.
So what do you think was the hardest part about being farmland?
Well, the hardest part was kind of making a living when we first came, because Don got $100 a month was his payment. Plus we had our meat and our vegetables, and so we were taken care of all right, but we couldn't have anything extra. So we felt like we kind of walked back in time for a while until he started to drive the school bus and make more money, and the neighbor kids could get transistor radios, but we couldn't buy them for ours, and they didn't understand that. But they soon understood.
So you did live off the land?
We lived off the land for a while until we realized we couldn't do it.
Did
Because
you grow most of your own food?
we had big garden. We grew a lot of the food, the vegetables and things, and then we raised the beef. So we sort of lived off the land, but it was a meager living, and that's why we had to go out and go to work.
Did you trade beef around for food and things like
No.
that? Or?
No, my folks did all the time. There was a public market in Eugene, and my dad would always take, we had a huge garden then, lots of strawberries, and we would take food into that, and then he'd trade it for something else.
So the best thing about being a farmer was?
Raising the kids. I mean, see, we had, kids all had their horse. The neighbor kids had their horses, and they played together. And every once in a while I'd have to haul one of them to the hospital because they fell off a broken arm or something like that. But that's life.
So what do you think was the best thing about being on the farm?
Best thing on the farm, we sort of raised our own children instead of having the city influence on them. We felt we kind of moved back in time, so like the old people raised their kids, we kind of raised ours that way. We thought we did anyway. They're all good kids.
Well, they all turned out nice.
They all turned out perfect. No problems at all.
Saw a lot. You had a lot of horses through the year. I saw you were actually riding one on a couple of the videos.
I used to ride horses. Nobody believes that because I'm such a prissy person now. But I used to ride horses, and a friend of mine had a Shetland pony that she left here, and I trained the Shetland pony, and he bucked me off several times. And I had to be careful because when he bucks up, he's so little, he'd come right over the back, so I'd have to quickly stand up, but he was little. So I felt my feet weren't too far from the ground.
Bet you let your daughters ride horses.
My daughters loved horses. I was so glad my son didn't, but they made my hair gray because they didn't think I worried about him, but I always worried about him, and I wouldn't let him ride with a saddle because I felt if the horse was going to buck, I wanted him off of there. I didn't want him drug. So they rode bareback, which I realize now is kind of dangerous, but I felt if they buck, my child is off of that horse and the horse is gone.
So what was your father's role in this farm?
Well, it was a good place for him to spend his Thursday afternoons. That's about what it amounted to.
So what did he enjoy about it?
Oh, he came out and if we were doing hay, and he done run the rake, light stuff like that. And he helped build fence and cut brush, clean up the land and whatnot. Just it was mainly a recreation for him to get away from the hospital and whatnot. That gave him one afternoon a week.
He still must have enjoyed the overall thought of running a farm or something because he kept acquiring.
Well, right, he did. But he had to keep his medical profession going to feed the thing. So, he never was interested in making a profit in it.
Can you explain what Webco was and what your involvement was in Webco and all the stuff you guys did with Webco?
Well, we were, a guy by the name of Al Webb lived over on Dillard Road. Another one named Siebert Briscoe went into the berry business and started to build Webco down in Creswell. Because I was a good friend of Al, and Al was a good friend of mine, so he talked me into putting some money into it. So I worked down there a couple of years, in between hay, and then tried to keep this place going, figuring that maybe that Webco would make enough money to where I could quit working so hard, but that didn't work out either. But that was the reason behind the Webco. We had about 3 lines. We did strawberries, blackberries, prunes. I think those were the 3 main ones.
How many people did you have working at Webco?
Oh, one time we had 25 or 30 of them in summertime when we were running the fruit through and whatnot. We were working, once in a while we were working 24 hours a day. And then we had to haul the fruit to Eugene to the cold storage outfit and froze it. And then we shipped it out to people from there. We shipped strawberries all over the world. I remember one time we went to Portland, they were loading a bunch of our strawberries into a boat up there. And they wanted us to go up there and watch them. Just publicity more than anything else.
Those were good strawberries, right? Not like
Oh yeah, no, those were good, sweet.
Did you just buy them from all the local people here?
We had quite a few growers that grew strawberries just for us. I don't remember now how many we had, but we froze quite a few strawberries in the 2 or 3 years that we were out there. Didn't do much in the wintertime, but we sure were a going concern in the summer.
So what was the end result of Webco?
Well, we went broke. The price one year was no good, and so we decided to hold the strawberries over until the next spring, thinking maybe the price would go up. Well, it didn't go up, and we were stuck with a storage bill for all these strawberries. By the time we paid everybody off, we didn't have anything left, so we went broke.
Did you guys use very many chemicals and stuff out here?
We used quite a bit of brush killer. At the time we were using it, the 2,4-D was the same brush killer that Agent Orange used during the Vietnam War. Well, prior to that, when we were using it out here, they didn't know anything about what was wrong with it, or whether it was right, or what it hurt you or whatnot. So I'd come in at night a lot of times to take a bath and that stuff.
Do you think that has anything to do with?
I think it probably had something to do with it. I don't know what, but I know I've got the Parkinson's. And generally they say that comes from something like that. I just got too much of that in my system.
So do you think today where they're using Roundup and stuff, then
well, Roundup isn't as potent as 2,4,5-T.
But do you think maybe 20 years from now they might decide that Roundup might?
Well, there's a good possibility. I don't know. I don't know anything about it as of now. The guy we've got the place leased to now, he uses chemicals, but every time we ask him about it, he swears up and down they aren't something to worry about. They don't go down in the ground. They just take care of the crop on top.
Yeah, I talked to him about that, but I think that that's probably what they said about 2,4-D.
Well, that could be. That could be.
Yeah, I think if it was hard to farm back then, it might get harder now.
Oh, make it harder now. It takes twice, 3 times as much money, capital to get started doing farming. I don't know. I'd hate to think that I had to start all over again.
So do you think that food can be grown locally? Or does it have to go to the big farms that use the big factories and stuff? Or do you think that if people were to support it locally, that it could go?
People won't support it. They get what they want, and then when the farmer that's growing it has to get so much, a little bit more every year and a little bit more every year in order to make it to go, then they lose ground. And it's a hard life. You've got to be out there weeding and working in there all the time in the rain and the wind and everything else. And people nowadays are not in such a way as they want to get involved in something like that.
If you were going to give advice to a young farmer trying to get into the farming business, what would you tell them?
Get yourself an education, get you a good job, so you can afford to buy a farm to play with. And that's my advice to anybody that wants to get in the farm. I've seen so many kids get out of high school. They were in the FFA program or whatnot. Boy, they were just gung-ho. And right to this day, I don't think any of them ever made it. They ended up broke and in debt to everybody in the country.
So in other words, if you want to make a small fortune on the farm, start with a large one, like your dad did.
And then sell it off in pieces, huh?
Yeah.
Well, that's one way. But like I say, like it started out with this interview, it's a good place to raise kids. But you won't make any money until you sell the place.
This is our home, and it will always be our home till somebody kicks us out. Yeah. Our daughter has it now, and her husband, and when they say we've had enough of you, I guess we'll move on. Next place we move, I don't think we need any luggage though. I think we'll just go crawl in a box.
That'd be morbid.
Well, no, that's not morbid, that's just reality.
Yes.
That's just the way the story goes.